Hello YouTube and welcome to Jet Ski update number 11. In today's video I'm going to be installing some steering components on the X2 as well as rebuilding the pump and installing it. Let's get to it. I'm not going to glue this because it's going to come back out when I do painting, which will probably be in the fall, so that would be a complete waste of my time. Plus I'm not really concerned about it being glued on. I don't care if it leaks a little bit. I think I'll tip this on its side to make it a little easier to work on. Will that be good? Oh, the seat wasn't latched on, apparently. If I remember correctly, there are 3 bolts, one here, and one here, and their only job is to hold that plate in place. So I'm going to put them in right now. Put this piece in, but I forget what I did with the screws, so I'm gonna have to wait and find them. I found the bolts. Here's our little plate. I believe I'm eventually going to make a mechanism for the trim so that I can use a lever to control it. But for now, I'm putting this on. Alright, what's next? These 2 holes here are supposed to be for the fuel valve bracket. Like many people, I'm not running a fuel valve. Or at least I won't be running the factory one. This is a grommet for the fuel lines, which are no longer coming up through here, but I'm going to put it in regardless to close some of the gaping hole. When I take it apart and paint it in the future, I will plug this hole. Next up, we've got this thing. These previously had green Loctite on them. Now they've got green grease. As long as it's green, I think it's okay. We're now going to move on and replace the bearings and seals in the pump and install the impeller. I've already taken it apart and powder coated it, as you can see. 2 bearings, 2 seals, 3 O-rings, and then this other seal, which I'm not sure where that goes. I think maybe it's supposed to go in the impeller. Remove the old O-rings. These O-rings look to be the same. Carefully work it on without damaging it. Two O-rings installed. A liberal application of grease. Okay, I have an old bearing that is about the same diameter on the outside. I'm going to use that to help me drive in the new bearing. It's going in nice and smooth now. There we go, hit bottom. You can tell by that sound. Ooh, buttery smooth. I spotted what I consider to be an interesting engineering decision. Kawasaki decided to have the inner bearing basically floating instead of up against the shoulder. Ordinarily, if you were building a setup like this, you would have your 2 bearings that set up against a shoulder for the outside diameter, and it would be precisely machined so that the bearings pressed together hit the shoulders and also hit the spacer at the same time. And what that does is it stops it from loading the bearings when you tighten up your impeller. So you've got your shaft here and the impellers on the other end. When you tighten this up, you don't want to compress the inner race of the bearing. What Kawasaki decided to do is, instead of depending on precision parts, they basically have the inner bearing so that it's floating. So the back bearing presses in against the shoulder, but then you have your spacer that goes in there. And you can see that it doesn't go all the way into the shoulder. It actually protrudes out from the shoulder. What that causes is this bearing, the outer race, actually gets to float. Information that you didn't need to know, but now you do. In order to press this bearing in, I'm actually going to do something that will probably upset some people. But because it's a floating outer race, I'm actually going to put the collar on. I'm going to leave the seals out for now, and I'm going to use the impeller to actually press the bearing into place. I got the old junk cleaned out of the impeller. Thread the prop on. I'm going to try to thread the prop on. Nice. Buttery smooth, gotta like that. Oh, I feel it. Alright, it has now tightened up against the spacer, which means the bearing is pressed in all the way. spinning the impeller back off so I can put the seals in. Okay, so now it's time to put the seals in. Someone's lawnmower does not sound good. Okie dokie. I wonder how much horsepower is lost or robbed because of grease in the pump and the fact that it runs cold with cold water going through it. I'm applying a bunch of grease to the surface of this seal so that when I push it in, it will squish out and I will have lots of grease in between the two seals to keep them well lubricated. And now both seals are pressed in. Okay, I am now going to refit my O-rings. I took them off so they wouldn't get damaged while I was pushing the shaft through. Alright, so the pump is almost done. We just need to put our spacer in, collar, whatever you want to call it, sleeve, collar, spacer. I'm going to use the impeller to push it on and turn it at the same time and hope that everything goes well. I felt it pop. I think I hit the second seal. Oh, and it popped in that one even easier. And we're dorked. This is now turning buttery smooth. Something that most people probably don't realize is that the rear cone on these actually holds in the rear bearing. You don't need to know that, but now you know. Do a little cleanup on the threads to make sure there's no gunk in there. All right. These are now tight. This might be a temporary fitment. I'm going to run a few new hoses. The pump has been drilled and threaded for dual cooling, and so I've got to run my second cooling line in a way that it doesn't interfere with anything. I'm going to tighten this down all the way because with my luck, if I just put it in loose, I'll forget to tighten it up. And I'll only remember when I'm driving across the lake and it starts making horrible noises. I tightened up that hose clamp. Now I'm going to put this in place and figure out where to run my hoses. The stuff you can get away with when you run in fresh water. That'll last a week in salt water and it'll be gone. Note to self, get some stainless steel hose clamps, for goodness sakes. Well, that's going to do it for jet ski update number 11. I still have some work to do to the pump. I have to seal it in. I have to replace the hose clamps with some stainless steel ones. I received these after I finished filming. I also have to install the support bearing and a few other things that I can't remember right now. Hopefully in some upcoming videos we get some riding footage. It is getting nicer here in Alberta, but the water is still quite cold. I did get some footage of myself and my buddy working on his RXT, which is ready for a test run, and he just picked up something which is really cool. So I'll probably have some footage of that in an upcoming video. Quite excited about it, so is he. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. I'll see you guys next time.